I can't believe I've been making these videos for 8 years, and I still haven't tried to answer the question burning in everyone's mind. Why does the Astral Observatory theme from Majora's Mask make me want to cry? The piece is painfully beautiful and one of those special pieces of music that has a magic to it that transcends any of the theoretical analysis I could offer. Still, I have to try. So let's dive into Astral Observatory. The piece is a short 12-bar loop, but instead of phrasing the music in the typical 4-bar chunks, Astral Observatory feels more like it's phrased in a group of 4 bars, then 3 bars, and then 5 bars. Just a little offset like this can keep a listener guessing, unsure of exactly what's coming next, which is part of the mystique of the piece. Now, of course, that opening run... No, wait. We need to set up the general character of the piece first so you can see how great that opening run really is. There are exactly 4 things going on at all times throughout the piece. The piano is giving us the chords and bass line, the choir is singing, or playing, it's a MIDI choir, anyway, it's playing the top note of the chords with the piano, the glockenspiel is following the choir, but filling in these 2 notes each bar with a partial arpeggio of the underlying chord. Underneath all this, a harpsichord is charging through the chord progression with a brazenly baroque 16th note pedal point figure. What's interesting to me here is the blurring of the line between melody and chord part. The melody almost never changes notes, and it sticks to the same repeated singer-songwriter rhythm for the entire form. It's played as the top note of the piano chords and really could work as an accompaniment part to a different melody, but emphasizing the top note of each piano chord with both the choir and glockenspiel line puts enough weight on it to make it stand out from the rest of the arrangement and feel like a melody. And so we get a melody whose primary characteristic is its restraint. The first 4-bar phrase shows the melody sticking to an A note through a repeated F major to B flat major 7 progression. Trading the 1 and 4 chords like this is a perfect way to create a relaxing atmosphere, and the use of the major 7th note over this B flat chord is just beautiful. The instrumentation creates a thick texture with the shininess of the glockenspiel playing off the warmth of the choir and the solidness of the piano. And the way the harpsichord chugs along underneath draws attention to just how much space there is in all of the other parts. The diligent 16th note undercurrent makes the wide open held melody notes feel like they're floating. A beautiful ocean of sound drifting above all of the activity below. I think we are the harpsichord bustling around our cozy little lab, and the other instruments are the sense of awe that looking out into the vastness of space inspires. Okay, now it's time. The introductory run sets up this 16th note feeling so that the melody can hit us with the full weight and beauty of this effect right from the first note. And I cannot state enough how perfect these first 2 pickup beats are. There are so many micro decisions that make this melody perfect, and they were probably made totally instinctively. First, why start on the E of beat 3? If we had an 8-note run, or a 6-note run, or a 4-note run that started on the beat and landed on the beat, it would better establish the beat of the music. Starting 1/16th note off the beat, with no other instruments establishing the beat around it, means that the listener doesn't quite expect the music to hit when it does. We're only aware that this pickup doesn't start on the beat after the melody comes in, and so we're caught off guard when this big, beautiful F chord hits. And also, why start on a B flat? Using a 7-note run to land on an A note, you would normally have to start on an A note an octave below and then run up the scale, but instead, Kondo started on a B flat, ran up the F major scale until he got to a G, and then slid a chromatic G sharp in there to make the line fit rhythmically and still land on an A. Each of these aspects perfectly set up the piece in a subtle way. Starting on a B-flat note takes us up the B-flat Lydian scale, and the Lydian scale has a bright, colorful, emotional sound. The chromatic passing note here lends an extra emphasis to the A note, the major 7th of our B-flat Lydian scale, which is a beautiful note choice, even though it is first harmonized by the home chord F. And the way the full instrumentation comes in all at once, in contrast to the piano and glockenspiel only pickup, adds to this moment of surprise, and makes the music feel huge right when that first bar hits. Like a chef cooking their signature dish, every little detail here adds up to make the end product a spiritually fulfilling experience. Now, this repeated A melody note lets us sit in this awe-inspiring atmosphere for 4 bars, but on the 4th bar we get our first melodic movement down to a G. Moving from the 7th to the 6th over a major chord is a gorgeous melodic move whenever it's used, but the restraint of the first 3 bars also means that finally changing notes here really catches our attention. Instead of drawing us down to a resolution on an F note here, our attention is rewarded with a surprise, a shift to an out-of-key E-flat major 7 sharp 11 chord. This is the flat 7 chord of the key of F, but we're continuing the momentum of the previous bars to get there. Moving in fourths, like this F to B flat to E flat, is a strong harmonic move and a natural sounding way to step out of the key. The return to an A in the melody here creates a deliciously crunchy tritone interval against the root and emphasizes a bright E flat Lydian sound, the A being the sharp 11 of the chord. This begins our 3-bar phrase, a period of gravity defiance that lifts us up into orbit and leaves us questioning where we are and where we're going. The melody for this chunk is a 3-bar version of the opening phrase, sticking to an A note for 2 bars and then closing with another move down from A to G. The harmony is where the movement happens. After our surprise jump up to E flat, we get a half step up to an E half diminished chord that leads, still with that crunchy A note in the melody, into an A7 chord to close out the phrase. The E flat came as a surprise, lifting us out of the key of F and toward the key of B flat, but immediately this momentum is reversed with a step up to E natural, aiming us towards the key of D minor. The A to G melody that closed out the last phrase deked us out with a move back up to A, but this time, over this A7 chord, the melody gives us a resolution, walking down from A to G to F as we land on the D minor chord that the E half diminished to A7 so beautifully set up. This point of resolution is what makes the music feel like a 3-bar phrase followed by a 5-bar phrase here. A 2-bar long secondary dominant setup puts a ton of emphasis on the resolving note, and resolving down to the relative minor of the key brings a poignant melancholy to the progression. But this feeling is again immediately reversed as we leap from this D minor to a bright G7 over B chord, and we begin winding our way back to the tonic to start the loop over. This phrase of melody starts on the tonic, F, moves up to G, back down to F, and ends the phrase on the leading tone E note, which wants to pull us back up to our tonic note F. The resolution back to F is instead interrupted by the 7-note scale run that opened up the piece, bringing us back to the top of the form with a flourish. What's interesting here is the 5-bar length of phrase and the colorful glockenspiel note choices. The progression from the 6 chord to the dominant 2 to the 5 chord is a classic way to get back home, but the strange little details added make the familiar elements more interesting. This G7 could have been 1 bar long instead of 2, and you kind of feel that extra space when you're listening to the piece. But both the G7 and C7 chords add a little motion to keep each chord from being too static. The G7 moves from a G over B in 1 bar to a root position G7 chord in the next, and the movement in the bass line and the melody line complement each other nicely. The final 5-chord setup is a drawn-out 5 sus to 5-7, this suspended 4th to 3rd motion emphasized by the melody. The glockenspiel arpeggios up until this last phrase have been very straightforward, hitting the root and fifth or root and third of each chord in between the melody notes, but here we get some extra colors. Over D minor, the Glock hits the second of the chord, a nice choice that crunches against the following minor third. Over the G7, we get the ninth of the chord tucked underneath the third, and both C7 voicings feature its 13th. The glockenspiel part has a loud overtone that sounds a fourth above the note it's playing throughout, and while this probably wasn't an intentional choice to have the notes a fourth above the chord tones so audible in the arrangement, it does weirdly add to the atmosphere of the piece. This part sounds so shiny and brilliant. I think this is part of the magic of the piece that I can't fully explain. Astral Observatory tells such a compelling story in such a short time span. The opening bars of the piece feel so warm and beautiful, and the confusion in the second phrase that leaves us without a foothold makes the subsequent turn to the relative minor feel so dark. But this only serves to make the rebound back up to the tonic by way of a very bright dominant 2 chord moving to a classic drawn out 5 sus to 5 chord feel so optimistic by comparison. And the return of the B-flat Lydian scalar run rocketing us back to the top of the form feels so satisfying. This is one of those rare tunes that you could listen to on repeat for 10 hours and actually not get tired of it. The careful restraint of the melody, the development of the harmony, and the way it creates a musical story in such a short time span is, in conclusion, why this tune makes me want to cry. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.